Hexproof is a term that most TCG players know. It is a term that originated in Magic the Gathering in 1999 with the set called Portal 3 Kingdoms. It is keyworded as the following. This creature cannot be the target of spells or abilities your opponent controls. We have a lot of these types of effects in a bunch of different card games, Yu-Gi-Oh being the most obvious one because everything targets in that game. In Weiss, we do not have a lot of cards that target, but there is still enough running around in the game that warrants some cards to have targeting protection or hexproof, and that is what we're going to look at today. So in Weiss, there's not a lot, but there's enough to warrant saying that there's a bunch. So we're going to try to keep it to 3 cards a level because let's all be honest, all the good hexproof cards are in level 3. We might even have to make a part 2 of this video. To be considered for this list, you need to bring something else to the table. Like, yeah, targeting protection is cool, but what else can you do? Like, are you a finisher? Do you give other cards targeting protection? Is the card cute? What? It's Weiss. That has to be a criteria. Pretty much, we are judging these cards by how versatile they are and how powerful they are on top of their targeting protection. And with that, let's start our journeys up to level 3, starting with level 0. Believe it or not, there are actually a decent amount of level 0s that cannot be targeted. There are actually a lot of cards that can't be targeted themselves, but they do give out that power. For the supporter cards, I'm going to give it to this card in Vivid Strike. She is a global 500 and gives the character in the middle position the effect, as opposed to other supporter cards that protect themselves and give 500 forward. Although there is this card in Psychopaths that is a global 500, but it could only protect itself. Power creep. Am I right, guys? Power creep. What's better than giving 1 card hexproof? How about 2 cards? That's why we have this card in Little Busters. Instead of 500 forward, you get hexproof forward. Lastly, we have this Louise who gains 1k power and hexproof if you have 1 or less other characters. So why is this important, especially at a level 0? Well, level 0s you can just play anything. And there generally is no restriction on being given hexproof. Like, it's just, if you're in front of this card, alright, great. If you're in the middle position of this card, great. But for level 0 to give another level 0 hexproof is kind of important because you do have a lot of other level 0s running around in certain sets that allow you to pay 1 and to pop a level 0 on your opponent's side of the field. Generally, those cards are only for level 0s, like it's a level 0 that can only target a level 0. So if your level 0 has hexproof, what are you doing? Also, most of those pay 1 pop a level 0 effects only target characters in the front row, so it is nice to have your back row give hexproof forward, especially if there's a card like in the middle position that gains like a certain effect. Level 1s. So there are 2 events that can provide a hexproof and they both have the same effect. One comes from Summer Pocket and the other comes from Love Live Sunshine. These cards give a character 5k5 and hexproof, which 5k5, wow, that's a lot. You're going to be running over things. In Saikano, we have this card here, which goes up to 6k5 power and hexproof if you have this 3-2 in your memory. And the only way to get that 3-2 into your memory is this 1-1 and this PR card. The 3-2 doesn't give any power or anything like that when it's in the memory. Plus, to my knowledge, there is only one way to get this card out of your memory, and it is with the Climax combo of this card. Now, let me say this. Thank God that both of these cards share a Climax because that kind of would have not have been worth it at all. The 3-2 is pretty damn good and can be brought out easily with this card. But you're not really going to be running this card, are you? This is pretty stock heavy, but it's easily doable if you just manage your resources. Also, there are other cards that gain benefits if there are extra cards in their memory. Also, the level 3, kind of good in its own right, plus it has hexproof, so I might as well throw it in here as well. On attack, top tick your deck and add it as a marker if you want. Climax Combo is a clock shoot, and at the start of your opponent's draw phase, you give a character 4k, and it can include itself, and with the markers, if you have 1 or more, can't be targeted. 2 or more gains 1k, 3 or more, all of your other characters gain 2k. Also, this does stack, so if you have 3 markers underneath this card, it gains all the previous effects as well. The only thing that is setting it back is the markers, and although it does have hexproof, that is good because there are a lot of effects that state that you get a character on the field, send it to the memory, and then bring it back. Because when that happens, you lose all of your markers. Yeah, we gotta make a part 2. We gotta talk about this card. How about a card in Girlfriend Beta? Remember that series? What? No one? I am old. I am damn old. Anyways, we have this little number here who gains 1k for each of your other yellow characters during your turn. She has hexproof right off the bat, and when it reverses an opponent in battle, you send that character to the memory. So this card is an awful version of this Akko, which makes sense, power creep. So this card only gains power during your turn, which sucks, because it is 1k per each yellow character, which is great. It can go up to 7k5, which is stronger than the original Aqua, but that's only during your turn. You have 3k5 power during your opponent's turn. So while the Aqua, if your opponent crashes into it, they get that card sent to the memory. This card just dies. It's not that great of a card, but it does fill the third criteria that I made earlier. It's cute. That's why it's on the list. All right, let's do one more level 1. We have this card from DeCapo 1 and 2. He has a Hexproof, and when this card is front attacked, your opponent must discard a card from their hand. It is an older card, so that explains the 1/1. And the weird attack declaration cost is just odd, but this card was when the meta was a whole lot slower and when was at 4. Remember that? Still, it's a good stall card for the time. Your opponent will really need to be mindful for the resources, and it is pretty funny to see a toll hike in Weiss. Also, to get rid of this, your opponent has to attack it. I mean, it's not going to be that hard. Currently, in Weiss, there are a good amount of cards that want to be in your waiting room, so okay, power creep is real, my friends. It is real. Off to the level 2s. In the events, we have Hero Time from Dog Days. That lets you choose an animal character and a warrior character. They must be separate cards, and they gain 2k and hexproof for the turn. What's better than choosing 2 characters? How about all your characters? Granted, this does only give out 1k5 power, and what's better than that? All of your characters gain 2k5 and hexproof. Unfortunately, this is the only little piece of Kazuma merch that I have, so he's gonna... You can't even see him. Right there. Thank you, Kazuma. Thank you. In the level 2s, there are a lot of cards that are level assists who can't be targeted themselves. We're only going to look at one because of the third rule. Look at this Puyo card. Hell yeah. Also, we're going to add this one from Steins Gate into the mix. Hexproof and a level 3 killer where it gains a level and 5k5 power. That's... Oh, geez, that's a lot. I'm adding it because it's a huge buff. Okay, here we have Aozora Jumping Heart Ruby. She gains 500 for each other music character on play from your stage. If you have 4 or more other characters, you can stock charge at the start of each player's attack phase. If you have Koi ni Naritai Aquarium Ruby Kurosawa in your waiting room, this card gains 1k power and a hexproof. Like I mentioned, you're helping your opponent out. The only condition is to have this in your waiting room, so with the full field, not counting your support, you can have an 8k5 beatstick, and with the Ruby in your waiting room, that's a 9k5 beatstick at a level 1. There's a whole lot better combos that you could be pulling off, but this is still pretty good. So this card right here is legendary, but here is something that many players did not know, and if you're watching this, you probably don't know this either. This card has a second effect. Did you know that? Did you know? I probably not. But either way, we all know this card. You know, it's on play, it's a card, top check 4, add a character. We only, literally, like, I'm being completely serious. We only use this card for that effect. Nobody, and I mean nobody, uses this card, you know, except for the Ruby Kurosawa freaks. Use this card for its second effect, Climax Combo. When you play the Climax, you can pay 1, pop this card, and you could play the 2/2 Ruby from your hand. Would have been better if it was from your waiting room, but you are setting up the 2/2 Ruby to be completely playable. Can you believe that this Ruby is a double rare and the 1/0 is a rare that costs $15? That is insane. Also, the double rare is the double rare is like $2. The Climax Combo has no plussing. It's all offense and defense. You can rush your opponent and damage, but as soon as you get them to level 3 or level 2, because, you know, this card is technically an early drop, you're gonna lose it. You're gonna totally lose this card. Also, 9k5 power. As soon as you get your opponent to level 2, any early drop can get rid of this. Rule number 3, boys and girls. That's why this is on the list. We're off to Hentai Collection. Holy shit. This combo that I'm going to talk to you about, I have some history with this. When I first started playing this game, my buddy and I were experimenting with decks, and he started off with Hentai Collection, and I started with Nisekoi. He told me that he found a combo that he wanted to run, and he wanted to play a game to see how it was. Holy shit. Me from the past was fucking terrified whenever these cards were dropped on him. These cards both do the same thing. When they are reversed, they are set as markers to the opposite card. When that card has a marker, they gain 5k power and a soul. And of course, they have hexproof as a separate effect. So when you reverse one of them, they're sent as a marker to the other one. Imagine a full field of these with me running a basic Nisekoi deck. The only way to get rid of these cards is through sheer brute force. It's not an early drop, so early drop killers do not work on this. You can't even use cards like this Christina that I mentioned earlier because it's a level 2. It's not a, it's still a level. You're still the same level. God, I had a hard time with this. The thing is, you don't need to worry about being at level 2 for too long because the +2 soul, they're gonna be damaging you straight to level 3. Speaking of level 3, now there are a lot of cards in level 3s like I stated earlier, like most of them are kind of like their own win condition. We're gonna limit only to 3 of them. You could consider that one I talked about in level 1 just as a bonus. We're gonna start off with this Toma card. When it's on stage, it loses 3 levels and he has Hexproof. The opposing card loses a soul, and when this card's battling opponent is reversed, you could pay 1 and you could search your deck for a character. I chose this card because it's just unique. It goes straight to level 0 on the field and it has soul suppression as well. It's super interesting and we don't really see that often. The search effect is good because it is during either player's turn, and yes, your opponent can just run into this with a level 0 bomb, but you do get a search out of it. To wrap it up, this card is decent, soul suppression is good. Next up is a set that kind of just came and went, Decapo versus Little Busters. Yes, I did make a video on this. No, I did not talk about this card. Anyways, this Sakura is hexproof, and on attack, you could give another character 500 multiplied by the number of magic characters that you have, and on your turn that this card is played, at the start of your encore step, you mill 2. Burn your opponent for however many soul triggers you milled. Oh damn, the power cannot be given to itself, but you aren't really worried about running anything over with this card. You want the burn, that's why you run this. It is a huge gamble because you might mill nothing, but the effect is free, so you do have to account for that. Also, the power can be given to another card like this one who does care when it reverses things. Lastly, we're going to talk about one of my favorite cards of all time. This card is an early drop if your opponent has a level 3 or higher character. If you have 2 or more adventure characters, she gains 1k5 and hexproof at the beginning of your opponent's drop phase. If this card's in the front row, you could give another character 4k power. Sounds familiar? Hope it does. And during this card's battle, if damage you receive is not cancelled, you could pay 2, ditch 1, burn for the same amount of damage you receive. Oh, I made a whole video talking about this card. This card is beautiful. I love it so much. So if you haven't seen that video, which most likely you have, I'm just gonna run through this super quick. To get this card out even earlier, you could use these 2 cards over here. If your opponent's at level 1 and you're at level 2, you could use both of these cards to actually shoot your opponent's characters up to level 3, giving you the chance to bring this out early. Alternatively, they could just have an early drop, which twice in 2020 they will have an early drop. Again, already talked about this card. Go watch that video. Oh, it's so good. And yes, there are a whole lot more that I did not cover, but I can save those for a different episode. Specifically this one. Anyways, thank you all for watching. What card is your favorite? Which one did I not cover that you want to see in the sequel? Because again, there's a lot of cards, a lot of level 3s. So yeah, the level 3s will probably be the majority of the next video. Look at me, already planning sequels like a movie executive. But yeah, thank you all for sticking till the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Weiss Schwarz news and content, and I'll see y'all in the next episode.